Comme chaque semaine, l'Extra Interview accueille à bras ouverts une personnalité amoureuse du petit et du grand écran. Aujourd'hui, c'est à notre âme d'enfant que s'adresse Mary Walsh, directrice générale de l'Animation Research Library de l'Empire Disney. La gardienne d'un temple réunissant plus de 65 millions d'œuvres, dessins et autres maquettes nous rappelle que le film d'animation, comme le cinéma classique, peut nous toucher d'une manière inattendue et que ce qui compte, c'est de raconter une histoire. Mary, if I was to sum up your job, you are making the archives of the memories of several generations of viewers, child, grown-ups, everybody. If you were to empty your own archives of images, movies or cartoons you've seen, what would we find?
So I grew up in Southern California, and so I have been exposed to Disney since a young child. I was lucky enough to live fairly close to Disneyland, so I have memories of going to Disneyland every year, growing up for as long as I can remember. Obviously, watching the Disney animated films and the Disney television shows was something myself, like lots of millions of other Americans, saw on television on a weekly basis. So I kind of have Disney in my DNA just by nature of where I grew up and the time in which I grew up.
And Disney and cartoons and movies afterwards, when we grow up, is a kind of a school. When you are a viewer, you learn a lot. You learn art stuff. You learn about death. You learn about pain and anger, and also about bravery and everything. Is there one cartoon or one movie you remember thinking, I've changed watching this?
It's funny because we're now sitting in an area right in front of us where there's art from Mulan and behind us as well. This was a film for me that really touched me because it was specifically about a young woman finding her own place in the world. And I just found that very inspiring.
To me, Disney has always been about empowering women. It's a big feminist art with strong women all the time. How do you see this evolution in the female characters of Disney?
I think you stated it quite well, that artistry in the films that Disney makes, women are portrayed based on what was contemporary for that time period. So obviously Snow White was very contemporary for the 1930s and how women were represented in the US during that time. And you go through decade versus decade and how the female protagonists in our films are represented probably in a more empowering way. That just represents contemporary society and how women's roles have changed in the society in those ensuing decades.
Is there one movie that you would select that you think not represents you the best, because you can't really be represented by an artwork, but that struck you more, or that you really want your kids to watch maybe when they're older, or one that really stands out for you?
It's really hard because as my kids started watching films when they were 3 years old, and every time it's really a choice for me, like how old are they, what are they capable of understanding, and so that they get the connection and it's age appropriate for them. So for me, it changes year after year after year, right? They were 3.5 when Frozen came out. And Frozen, obviously, it was a huge hit and known around the world, and they got to see the movie several times. And they're boys. And I know there was a lot of, oh, this film is great for girls, and you saw these girls dressed up in their dresses, and it's great. My children know every single word to every single song, and they were 3.5-year-old boys. So what that told me was the music in the film spoke to them as a human being versus a boy or a girl. And I just thought, for me, I was much more impressed by that, and I hadn't quite expected it. And then when I saw it in my own family, it was fabulous.
But it's a bit the same with Star Wars, in a way. You would think it's for boys, but no, it's for everybody.
And they love Star Wars, too. So we watch Star Wars a lot as a family, yes.
That young?
Well, yeah, they probably started watching Star Wars when they were 5. Now they're 6.5 now, and we've seen all of the Star Wars films, and we talk about it all the time. And it's something, that I can connect back to with them. My husband's a big Star Wars fan, so it's great. I mean, but I think you come back to it, the reason everybody talks about those films and you go back and watch them and you can't wait for the new ones, it's because of the storytelling. You want to be in that world. You understand those characters. You want to learn what they're going through. So for me, every time I come back to a film that resonates, it's the storytelling aspect of it that stays with me in my heart and in my memory, and then what I want to share with my children at the right age with them.
Where else do you find a way to feed yourself with what you want to see on television or on cinema? What do you like to see? What directors speak directly to you?
Are you talking me personally about what I like to go see? I love good stories, whether it is a comedy or a drama or something that's based in reality or not. because, you know, we're all very busy and you sit down in a theater, and for me it's really important. It's like I want to sit there and be immersed in that storytelling. So obviously Steven Spielberg is one of those directors that you know you can go and what you're going to get. So for me it's not any one specific genre or one specific filmmaker. It's really about the integrity of the story and how I as an audience member, when I sit down in that theater, and what experience I get from it, that there's emotions behind it, and that there is reality in the sense that I can connect to those characters in some way. Even if they, you know, they're bad guys, I can understand their motivation of what they're doing. So to me, it's compelling storytelling.
Do you feel that our feeling of storytelling and our understanding of storytelling comes from the cartoons that we've seen, that we wouldn't be able to see a movie this way if we hadn't been fed before by Disney movies?
It's probably true because Walt Disney was so influential so early on. When you think about just the storyboarding process, which is something that, from everything that we have read, began at the Walt Disney Studios, and that storyboarding process of creating really quick sketches to kind of get the ideas out really quickly and to visually show what's going to happen in the film has been used since day one, and we still use a storyboarding process. And I think that really helps support the narrative. And then because that was so instrumental in that filmmaking technique today, it still exists today in live action, in television. Everybody, no matter what kind of genre they're making, they storyboard things out.
We hear directors complain about studios putting pressure on them, only blockbusters being seen in theaters and indie movies basically dying. Do you think because it's animation, your freedom will never end?
John Lasseter, who's our chief creative officer, talks about this all the time. It's a filmmaker-driven studio. So the directors who are pitching the ideas for the films, it's really coming from their heart and from the stories they want to tell. There's nobody telling them you have to make this, this, or this. It's what is it that you want to make, and can you create a compelling story that's appropriate to actually mount a whole production and to put a budget together to create that film. So it's coming from the filmmakers. You can feel the filmmaker's heart and passion in each of the films. So that legacy back to the creative artistry of what Disney Animation has done for over 93 years, I think is really important. And it humbles me, quite frankly, because of the fact that my team and I have this responsibility to safeguard this artwork for generations to come and to share it in this kind of exhibition program.
Pour découvrir la minutie et la magie du travail des artisans Disney, rendez-vous au musée Art Ludique à Paris jusqu'au 5 mars prochain.